record. And we are recording, Chris. You're set to go.
Hey, there we go. All right, so just to introduce myself, Chris Tedford. I'm the Cub Master of Pack 106 in Grafton. I've been running Pinewood Derbies since 2004. My wife and I started our own little Pinewood Derby with our friends and family because they were all interested in it. So I've been doing these for a long time. We started with a wooden track and then moved on to an aluminum track, which is the one you see in the picture here. And then I've also taken over doing Pinewood Derbies for my son's Cub Scout pack. So, so there's a mix of pictures in here. They're from our personal aluminum track, they're from our wooden track, and from our packs track. So this presentation is going to be more about how to do a Pinewood Derby in non-COVID times. If there are questions about virtual stuff, we can talk about it at the end, but this is going to focus mostly on how to do it in person, because I'm hopeful that we won't have to do virtual derbies after this year. There we go. All right. So what do you need to run a successful Pinewood Derby? You need a track. Can't have a derby without the track. You need volunteers. It takes a lot of people to do race check-in, to get everything set up, to clean up afterwards. You need car runners to carry the cars back and forth. Those can be other leaders, scouts from a troop, or they can be your Webelos and AOL dens. You need people to place the cars on the track and actually start the races. You need someone to run the race software if you're using that. And you need someone to MC the event. And you need a way to keep the scouts entertained when they're not watching races. It's invariable, you're gonna have some technical difficulties at some point, and scouts are gonna be sitting around waiting, and they're gonna wanna be entertained. You can see in this picture, we gave the kids thunder sticks one year because somebody thought that would be fun. They are fun for about the first 30 seconds, and then not so much anymore. So they bang them together, they make lots of noise, and then they quickly realize that they don't actually hurt somebody when you hit it with them. So they start beating on each other. So we have lots of them still to give away. All right, so what do you do if you don't have a track? Well, you can borrow one or rent one. So we rent ours out to other units. They pay a small donation for that. So that gets them the track, and it gets them me and our software package. So they can do that. That's a way for units to do that relatively cheaply. Council does also have a track that can be borrowed. I don't know exactly what the specifics of the track are, but it is an aluminum track. It has a finish line. I don't know what it has for software or anything like that, but the software is relatively cheap for a unit to purchase on their own if they're borrowing a track from the council. You can build your own out of wood for a decent amount of money. It's not too bad. Or you can buy one. Buying one is probably going to cost over $1,000, but should be less than $2,000. So it's an investment, but then you can do like we do, and you can let other units borrow it, rent it, and make some of that money back. So if you're going to build your own, the cost is going to be about $100 to $200. This is a track that I built back in 2004. It used one sheet of plywood. The plywood was ripped so that it's just narrow enough that you can get four equal pieces out of one sheet of plywood. So it's 32 feet long. There's a couple of steel plates to reinforce the joints. As you can see in the picture on the right, our finish line is literally just painted on the track, and we have a little flag over the top of it. So it is a visual finish line, only you have to pay attention to it. Wooden tracks aren't particularly reliable for timed races. You can set them up for that, but they're not really reliable for it, simply the nature of wood. But it does store down pretty compactly. The pieces are no more than about 2 inches thick with all their framing. So they store relatively nicely. It does require a bit more maintenance because it is wood. So you have to keep it clean and stuff like that. So just a couple more pictures. You can see after our finish line, we've got the strip of the center rail goes up to kind of pick the car up off the track and slow down. It was very rare for a car to stay on this track. So even slow cars could get off the end of this track because there's no friction there really. So Again, you can see the completely visual finish line. We had to do photo finishes a couple of times where you couldn't figure out who it was. You'd have to rerun the race and somebody would stand there with an SLR over the finish line and just start clicking away to see if we could figure out which car crossed first.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it with that track, there's not a lot of ways you can do your determining a winner. It's pretty much a bracket system, which is very discouraged. The pros to it is low tech. Like this is a piece of masonite we painted with chalkboard paint, put some tape on it. You're right on chalk. It's fine. It's great.
Keep going. No one's doing this anymore.
I know.
Keep going. It's
So
amazing that you did it as a home project, but yeah, keep going.
we did it for years as a home project. So when you're purchasing a track, the things to consider are how many lanes. So the more lanes you have, the more each scout will have to race. You want them to race on every lane so that it's equal. So a 4-lane track, each scout has to race 4 times. 8-lane track, each scout has to race 8 times. If you have a huge pack, 8 lanes can be good because you got more scouts going at once, but you do have to race that many more times. Length of track standard is about 32 to 40 feet. Ours is 40 feet, not counting the section at the end. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but like from the black rubber here to the end here is not included in that 40 feet. It's from the start to the finish line.
Yep.
So, and with the track we have, it has a pre-curved section to it. So the section where it transitions from the drop to the flat is pre-curved because it's aluminum. And so that makes it a little more difficult to store. So our box for it has to be a little bigger because it's a huge curved piece. Our personal Pinewood Derby track, all the tracks are straight. So we have 4 8-foot straight tracks, and you use 2 10-pound weights in a bracket system that pull that portion of the track down to the floor. So you get a very gentle curve as opposed to this, which is a pretty steep drop and then it levels out. Our personal track goes together with screws. The pack track goes together with spring clamps. There's little pins and sockets. You literally push them together and then put a spring clamp on it. It works great. And then you'll also need race software or finish line. You can buy the aluminum track without a finish line. It's better to buy it with, in my opinion, because then you get the one you need. The one we have is set up for all the bells and whistles. So if we ever wanted to at some point, we could set it up for a photo finish. So it'll take photos as they cross the finish line, but we don't need that, so we don't do it. With the race software, you do have to be careful with the licenses. If it's owned by one particular leader, when that leader leaves, you have to figure out what you're going to do with that. You could also buy a relatively inexpensive laptop computer for the pack and put it on that, and then just keep it updated. But so in our
So
case,
the way the licensing worked when I just bought it, yes, I put my name on the license, but it's transferable. So when I'm done being the leader of it, I'll transition it to somebody else. All you need is that license key, which is 16-bit and encrypted, and that so they install and then they give the key, and now they have the licensed version.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, I've always just used my personal one because we have it for home.
And
so
it's just, again, maybe that's one of the improvements Grand Prix made or whatever the name of the company is, but it's not good software. Because their little installer window still appears and you can tell that they're running, Python underneath, and it's just ugh.
All right.
All right.
So then as you come up to it, you have to do check-in. So for check-in, what you need a scale. You want everybody to use the same scale. Yep. You need a way to test the car parameters. So does it fit in terms of length? Does it fit in terms of width? Height off the ground, if you have issues with that. Is it too tall? Things of those natures. And then you need a place to store the cars until race day. So we should have had a picture of it, but we have boxes that our AOLs made years ago that hold 16 cars each. They've got handles on them, so we can just pop cars into there. They have their own little slots. They can stack. So
I'd love that. If you have a design for that or a picture of that, I'd love to see it.
Okay, yep, I'll send a picture along. But they hold 16 cars. So like when we check them in, they just go in their numbered slot and then we can just carry them all.
I like it. I have a bag with little plastic boxes and I stack them all up in the bag, but I'd much rather do, I can only do 4.
Oh, okay.
I can carry 4 at a time.
Yeah. So most units will have a pit crew for this night. And these are parents that can be a little bit more handy. They can assist with any last minute changes that might need to happen. So kid comes in
Fix
overweight.
the wheels when they break off, all that stuff.
Things like that. We try to have the parents do the majority of that so that a leader's not responsible for further damaging a car.
Yep.
And then we have weights that we let our parents purchase. We let them know we have these weights. So they're 1/4 and 1/2 ounce weights, and they are literally wheel weights for cars. It's what they put on your rim. They're self-adhesive, so they got a little backing to them. So a kid needs a 1/4 ounce weight, you sell them a 1/4 ounce weight. They need a 1/2 ounce weight, you sell them a 1/2 ounce weight. You peel off the back and you stick it right on there. And they
on the car, on the body.
on the car. Yeah, we'll put it on the bottom of the. I mean, we let them put it where they want to put it.
Yeah.
But
we
but
let
they
them
come
glue
in little,
pennies.
like,
We glue pennies on and
Yeah.
quarters and things like that. But okay.
So we charge 25 cents for them. The parents have no issue with it. They like it because they bring the car in and then they can weigh it up to what they need to. So, all right. So other fun ideas to do at check-in, you can take pictures of the cars with the scout. So we do this, we put a flag behind them and then we'll have the kids hold their car up. We'll take a picture of it. We'll take a picture of the individual car itself. And then we run a slideshow during the event so the kids can see whose car goes with who, so they can see all of that. I've seen other units who create a driver's license or a pit pass for their scouts.
Yep. We did that.
It takes time, but once you have a template for it, it's pretty easy, I assume. Just take a picture and then copy and paste it into there. When should you schedule your check-in? Or at a minimum, it should be the night before. I always cringe when I hear people like, oh, we have check-in for the race at this time, and then we're starting the race at this time. And I'm like, oh, like you should give yourself a night to do this. Like, good practice and what we do is we do it a week before. So it allows for any stragglers if your unit allows that. So this past
Excuse me,
year,
guys, I gotta pause for a second. You keep talking though, because we're being recorded. So I think.
Yeah.
So I'll be right back.
Okay. So it allows for any stragglers if your unit allows that. This past year, with COVID, we had a kid who tested positive, so we allowed them to work it out so that they could still enter their car, but wait until they were past that period, and because it was only a few days. So we were able to do that. Moving on. So on race day, you'll need to figure out the number of heats that you're doing, and you do this beforehand actually, but each car should race on each lane at least once. With a 4-lane track, this means you're going to have a number of heats that is equal to the number of cars. So we generally have somewhere around 32 cars. So you're going to have you're going to have 32 races. And the software figures all of this out for you, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So the screen you see here, or the image you see, this is a pretty standard image that you'll see when the software is up. So the ones in blue are the race that just ran. The spot down in red at the bottom is the on deck or the next set of racers. So you can let people know that they're on deck, or if you've got a projector, you can project that and kids and parents can see, and you can get kids' attention if they can come over. The little box on the left is more for the operator of the software, and in our case, when we project onto a screen, that doesn't actually show up on there. That stays on the laptop, and only the blue and red boxes go up on the projector screen, which is nice. And you got sound effects, things like that. You can play the national anthem with it. You can do a car revving, a car peeling out, car crashing, all kinds of stuff like that, which the kids love. The kids love the sound. So I would highly recommend that. All right. So type of racing schedule. If you're using Grand Prix Race Manager, you have a couple different options. One is the perfect in, which will randomize the races on a set of configurable criteria, and it takes the number of cars that you have and can figure it all out. So if you've got an odd number of cars, it might say you need to have some races that are only 3 cars, and it figures that out. It shuts the lanes off where it needs to shut the lanes off. You don't have to worry about any of it. The advantages of this are, you know, the order for all the races in advance. So we're able to do a printout that we're able to give to the starter, and I keep one at my desk. And you can go through the whole thing. You can cross a line through the race as you do it. It's very easy. The software attempts to balance the spread of who races who. So you're not likely to race the same car multiple times, depending on some factors. If you've got fewer cars, obviously that's going to happen. But with upwards of 30 to 40 cars, you're not going to be racing the same person over and over and over again. You might race them twice, but that's about it. So dynamic racing is another way to do this. It adjusts each round, and it calls a round as everybody racing one time. That's a round. But at the end of that round, what it does is it takes all those cars and puts them together in a grouping. So it puts your 4 fastest cars together and your next 4 fastest and your next 4 fastest. So what you get is you get more individual race winners. So there's more likely that somebody will win a race this way. And you get more exciting races because the cars are more tightly grouped. So instead of having your fastest car blowing everybody out, you have your cars that are more closely grouped together, and it makes for a more exciting race. So the downside to this is you only know who's racing each round, and you have to redo it each round. It refigures it out. So if you have a printer and you want to take the little bit of time it takes to do that in between your races, you can do that. We use this system for our personal derby at home because our friends really like it, because they like to see they like to have the closeness of the races. And you know, it's a fun afternoon for us, so we don't care if it takes a little extra time. We also don't have big printouts and everything, so it's a little different. All right, moving on. What are the jobs that you need? You need a starter, so you need a responsible adult who can supervise the positioning and verify that the cars are in the correct lane. So in the picture here, you can see these are boys from Troop 106 that help us out every year. They come and do this for us, and we have one of our Webelos leaders at the time is making sure that they've got the right cars in the right lane. You do want to make sure these are older scouts doing this, just because they have a little bit more of an attention span and attention to detail with this. You need somebody to operate the computer, and this needs to be a responsible adult who knows the software and can make adjustments on the fly. You are almost certainly going to need to rerun at least one race. If it's you can forget to tell the thing that you're ready to race. So everybody races, but it didn't actually time it. So you'll have to reset and rerun for that. You could have a car jump the track. You could have a wheel come off. There's any number of things that can happen. And so you just have to rerun it. The software is set up for it. It's one button. You click it, say you want to rerun, you type in capital letters, yes, and it'll rerun the whole race for you. And you just have to communicate that that's what you're doing, and it's easy to do. Car runners, you need somebody that can take the car from the finish line back up to the top, and then they get reset back into their storage boxes. Again, we use scouts from the troop for this, but you could also use your Webelos or AOL den. That would be fine. But they should definitely be reminded to take care with the cars. If they're your Webelos and AOLs, especially, because they're handling other scouts' cars that aren't racing. Scouts from a troop sometimes tend to forget that these are kids' cars that they spent time on and that they're going to go on to other things. So you just want to make sure they know to be careful with the cars. So how do you keep the scouts engaged during all of this? So they're going to show up and there's no racing happening right away. You get your typical gathering time. So you should have games or other activities available to occupy the scouts. This is Pack 107 that I've helped out. They use the Pinewood Derby as a way for their bear dens to do bear carnival. So they know this is what their bear dens work on right leading up to this event. And so they work on bear carnival and they have their games at the Derby. So the scouts who have done it, as you can see here, there's a bear in the background. He's running the event for them, and they just set up all the different stations, and they give the kids the rules of the games. The kids know, they line up, they do everything they're supposed to do. It was amazing to watch. They close the games once the races start. They put away all of the stuff for it. Like the bigger pieces stay out, but like all the plates in this case would go away. And then at a later point, they reopen it slightly so that the kids can come back and do stuff. If you have den chiefs, this would be a good time to get them involved in organizing pre-race activities. If you don't want to do bear carnival, you can get them like leading the kids and stuff. It's a great way to get your den chiefs involved. During the race, you have your MC. And in that case, in our PAX case, it's me as the Cub Master. I'm emceeing. Somebody else runs the software. I take care of all of the Master of Ceremony stuff. So I'm announcing races. I'm announcing who wins. I'm announcing who's on deck. You make up fun stuff as the cars come racing down. You know, if the car's doing like 230 miles an hour, you know, you talk about how they might be getting their speeding ticket in the mail and all that sort of stuff. The kids love it. And again, we have the sounds, so we just have them play the sounds through it as well, which really helps. We let the scouts do a 3, 2, 1 countdown, as you can see here. They get really into it. The first couple of times they can be a little timid, especially if it's a new scout, but they'll all crowd around like you can see here, and they'll want to do it. And it's just nice because, and the starter knows it, so they wait for them. They're not, you know, like, oh, I'm going to go anyway. They'll wait for the kid to do it. Another way to keep them engaged is have a projector showing slides of all the cars in the scouts. So you took all the pictures of the scouts with their cars, or you took all the car pictures, just have that on a continuous loop on another screen. Again, it lets them see who made what car. They can see the cars in better detail, potentially. That sort of stuff. Lunch. Depending on timing of it, you could take a pizza break about halfway through. This is what we do. We'll run about half the races, and then we plan for a pizza break. We take a break for pizza, and then we go back to the races. For 107, the other pack I help out with, what they do during this time, they take a pizza break, but then they reopen their Bear Carnival games. So the kids can play games during the thing as well. So it's a little less formal at that point, but they still follow the rules and everything. And you can sell snacks as a fundraiser if that's something you want to do. In years past, we've had a Girl Scout troop that came in and would sell cookies and other snacks for us during there, and they would treat it as a fundraiser. It worked out really well for us. We don't do that anymore. So now we've started selling snacks, but we don't tell people you can't bring your own. And then awards. So some units present speed and design awards on race day. So they'll have all the awards made up and then they present them. It allows the scout to go home with hardware that day. You don't have to worry about it. Others units, like our unit, we wait until our blue and gold, which is the following month, to present all of those awards. We announce everything, like who won fastest cars and stuff like that. But this allows our awards to be personalized with the scout's name. So when they get their trophy for first, second, or third place, it has their name on it as well. And then they get little medals for top in den, or top in rank rather. And then for all the design awards, they get a medal that has their name and what the actual thing is. So it allows us to personalize it. The kids like it, and it keeps them in suspense. I will say, if you're going to do an award for the slowest car, give it a creative name. Don't call it slowest car. Our personal one is Turtle Award. For our pack, we do most fuel efficient. I've seen other people do Dragon In, best brakes, things like that. You want to give it a fun, creative name. The kid can figure out that they're the slowest car, but you don't want to explicitly say, this is the slowest car award. And in the picture, you can see these aren't ours, but these are just some simple, fun trophies that you can make. I believe these were left over from a car show of some kind. And they just used label tape and, you know, put first place, Pinewood Derby, Pack 64, second place, you know, things like that. Like, it's just something fun to put on there. The kids really like them. I had one that I wish we'd put a picture in here. So I helped Oxford out as well with theirs, and they do a parent sibling race. They call it their outlaw race, and they have a fun homemade award for that. It's like paper towel tubes. It's gaudy, but it's really cool looking. And so that goes to whoever wins it, and then they bring it back the next year. So it's a trophy that you only get to keep for a year, but they only have one trophy for it. So it works out well. Okay. And that is my presentation.
Chris, did you cover venues earlier? Where to host your Pinewood?
Oh, I didn't. I mean, so we use not the hall for the church that are chartered through. We use another hall in town. Both of the packs actually use it. It's a much bigger hall.
Mhm.
So we do that because we have a lot more space when we do it there. You want to do it somewhere where you have where your scouts can spread out a little bit,
Yeah.
because it's a very chaotic day.
Yep.
I was thinking about it earlier. This is the day that I use the Cub Scout sign twice for this day. Once at the beginning to get everybody quiet so we can kind of go over the rules, and then again at the end so that we can announce the winners and stuff. But the rest of the day, I'm not even trying, because there's no point. The kids are having fun and you don't want to stifle that.
So we've actually separated the awards from the racing so that
Okay.
we actually do the awards while the racing is going on. So we do all the racing, and you can set up the software this way where, you know, all the wolves go together and all, so you can do awards by den when the wolves are all done.
Okay.
So that way, and now the Webelos are running, and Webelos don't care about the wolves, so they hardly watch their races, and the wolves really don't care that much about the Webelos. So it's, you know, it's fine for them to sort of watch the track for a while and then shift around the corner. So we just, you know, we have the room laid out so that there's sort of the track and racing area. There is a play area. There is a table area for quiet, you know, coloring and just, you know, even have board games over there. And then we have the awards area. So where we set up a group of chairs and we have a podium, and we let the kid, you know, we call them up and say, in fourth place is this, in third place, second place, first place, take a pic, you know, then the parents all take their pictures. We hand out the awards right there. And that's all going on at the same time more racing is going on. So it makes the day go quite quickly. We did 50 scouts in about 2 hours.
Okay.
So, and we had a 4-lane track. So yeah, you do have to run all 4 lanes, but again, with only about 10 or so scouts per den,
it's
5 dens, you know, so it's, you can count the number of races, and the races only take about 10 seconds. So, you know, it's the software, if you let the software, you know, plan the whole day, as fast as you can get the cars back up the track is kind of, that's the limiting factor.
Right. When we did our virtual derby this year, it took about 45 minutes to run the whole race because we didn't have to stop or anything like that. So we were able to just do the whole thing. So we drag it out a little bit because our kids do enjoy it. So, but when we race ours, we race everybody against everybody. So they all have their different ranks. So we know who is our fastest wolf, bear, whatever, but we just put them all together. So they race as one big group. So you could have Webelos and AOLs racing against a lion. And they all enjoy it. So that's just the way we've done it. So, but you know, people have to stay. I mean, so doing it by individual rank, doing by individual rank, they could come and go. Like if they're like, oh, well, my scout's done, I can leave now. So we try to, we want everybody to be there cheering on everybody. So we do it the other way. So
I think one of the reasons we got into this, because I heard horror stories of the Pinewood Derby taking 4 hours or 5 hours. And people can't carve out 5 hours in the day. They can spend 20 or 30 minutes, maybe an hour there. And there's enough overlap, you know, you just give them kind of slots and say, be here in your rough time frame. And that's, you know, we're going to do wolves at this time, bears at this time, do Webelos at this time. And you know, we just sort of pace ourselves that way. And then people decide how much they want to overlap. It is, you know, you're absolutely right. It's a big pack event. It should be, you know, as many people that want to be together as possible. But again, with, you know, with everything just so awful this past year, that kind of went out the window. We just did it all virtual. Now we're going back to a semi, you know, we can have people there, but now we're talking about doing it outdoors. So that's going to be a little rough. So when you talk about venue, so we're probably going to do it. The church charter organization that we have has like an outdoor hallway that we can use. And so we'll put the track in the outdoor hallway. People will be outside the hallway looking in. And, you know, if it's raining, we're probably going to have to reschedule because we can't have people sitting in the rain while they're watching the cars go down. So it forces a rain date requirement on us. The other option for venues, I started making some inquiries at local car dealerships.
No.
And there's a couple that are big enough that would be willing to host an event inside their car dealership.
Wow.
And they kind of, it was actually a Herb Chambers.
Okay.
And I have this great picture of my son. I used to bring my son to the New England Car Show, and he
Mhm.
saw one of Herb's Bugattis. And so he designed a Pinewood Derby that looked like Herb Chambers' Bugatti. And so he wrote to Herb Chambers, said, I made your car into a Pinewood Derby. And Herb invited him into the showroom and gave him
wow.
a tour and gave him all kinds of goodies. So,
Wow.
and then we got talking about, would you ever consider sponsoring our event or hosting? And he's like, I would love to.
Okay.
All these kids are future car buyers. Their parents are car buyers. And anytime I can get people into the showroom, I'll do it.
Right.
So
Okay.
it was just a question of, he would have to do it. And one of the times he was doing his showroom changeovers.
Yeah.
So take a bunch of cars out. There's a lot more room on the floor. And, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to schedule, but I just think it's a nice tie-in if we can.
That's a fun way to do it. I mean, venue-wise, we use the same place every year, so we don't really think about it. This past year, we had to think about it, but then we were able to move to our chartered orgs basement where we normally have our PAC meetings.
Yep.
Because it's big enough for our PAC meetings, but it's not big enough for the Pinewood Derby. It would get way too chaotic and loud.
We also do the driver's licenses, or we've done them in the past.
Yeah.
So it helps to have a little specialty printer that can print the little plastic cards.
Yeah.
Directly on there. And if you bring in your cars in advance and you get all your scout photos in advance, you can lay out everything and have the cards pre-printed before they show up to the day, or they can get it while they're there. But then you have to have a station that basically prints driver's licenses all day.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit more complicated, and you need something technical to run that. So
I think when our PAC did it, they would take all the pictures the night before, and then one or two of the leaders would have a relatively late night getting everything printed up. So the next day when the kids came to the actual Derby, they were getting they could get their licenses. Like I said, now we do turn in a week early. We haven't wanted to go back to the licenses for whatever reason. It just hasn't been something we've wanted
it's a lot
to
of
do.
work.
Right.
The kids do love them, but it's a lot of work.
So we haven't done it, but there was a little bit of talk when we switched it to 1 week before. We're like, oh, it's a week before, like everybody's going to say they don't have enough time. And it's like, the cars are still going to come in with wet paint. Like we could make the deadline of months before the Pinewood Derby, and they're all going to work on their cars the week before. Like that's just what happens. Like, they'll be ready when we tell them they have to be ready. Like, and they will take all the time that they're given. So
it just doesn't seem like the check-in process and the registration process is that long in the software. So it doesn't take a whole week to set up the race in the software.
No, and we do it more so that we don't feel like we're scrambling that night is why I do it. Like, for the most part, we set up an Excel spreadsheet, and we just, as the kids show up, we put them in, and because we number the cars as they show up, we don't pre-assign them numbers or anything like that.
Oh, interesting. The kids don't get to pick their own numbers?
Nope. Whoever's the first one to show up gets number one. We used to do it alphabetically, but then we would have skip numbers, and we don't like having skipped numbers. PAC 107 numbers there, so like their Tigers will be 100s, their Lions will be 100s, their Tigers will be 200s, 300s, 400s, 500s.
Yep.
So it's easy to know who's what rank.
Yep.
But we just numbers ours sequentially as they show up.
Okay.
So, and the kids don't have an issue. Like the kids will still put numbers on their cars.
Yeah.
But we're like, that's fine. You can do that. We don't care.
Yeah,
like,
can
but
have
for
whatever
our
number you
tracking
want.